It's late August, and that means we're getting close to the Oktoberfest season, which begins in Munich on September 17th, I believe, and ends on the first Sunday in October or October 3rd, whichever comes later. So if the first Sunday in October is the 1st or the 2nd of October, then it ends on October 3rd. Also, what's remarkable about Oktoberfest season is the availability of Oktoberfest beers. Now, you must not confuse the two different types of Oktoberfest beers. The first and the traditional type is called a Märzen. That's spelled M-A umlaut R-Z-E-N. So in English it looks like a Märzen, but in German it's pronounced Märzen. The A umlaut can be written in English as A-E. So in English you might write that as M-A-E-R-Z-E-N, Märzen. And also the Z sound in German is usually a TS type of sound, Märzen. And it means March. So the Märzen beers, which are a reddish lager, kind of like a Vienna lager, they were brewed in March. They were lagered or stored over the summer, and then they were cracked open in September for consumption for the beer festival, Oktoberfest, which in Germany they call the Wiesn. Now, the other type of Oktoberfest beer is called a Festbier, or Wiesn beer. And that's what I have here. The difference between a Märzen and a Wiesn beer is they are both, although they are both about the same in strength, that is alcohol by volume, these are more of a traditional yellow lager type of beer. These are basically a Helles beer, but stronger. And they are maybe a bit more malty as well. They're very good. I discovered this style just a few years ago, and it's become one of my favorite styles, and it's unfortunate that they're only available at this time of the year, and they'll probably stop being available sometime in late October or November. I guess whenever the liquor stores, package stores are sold out, that'll be the last of it until next year. So I have two from two of the most famous breweries in Bavaria, Hofbräu, and here's an A umlaut in the name Hofbräu. And you can see that it's you could spell that as H-O-F-B-R-A-E-U, which makes the sound Hofbräu in German, or Hofbräu, because the O's are a little bit different pronounced in German than English. Another thing that I found about these beers is they are easy to get a head on them, and they maintain the head. So, which is interesting, because if you have a stereotypical view of Oktoberfest, you see people with their mugs singing and drinking, and their mugs will always have a nice foamy head on them. The other brewery is called Weihenstephaner, which is located outside of Munich, near the airport, in a small city called Freising, and it's up by the Munich airport. I've been to both of these breweries. I've been to the Hofbräu House in downtown Munich, and I've been to a bar restaurant that was a Weihenstephaner owned or affiliated place. I'm not sure. Now, as you can see, these are both very lager-like or traditional lager colored or Helles. Although I haven't did a side-by-side with a Festbier and a Helles to see what the difference is in color or taste, but I do know that I I like these beers very much. I like the taste of them. So I'm not going to bother doing this blindfolded because this foam's going to give it away. I'm not sure why they Weihenstephaner didn't produce a head of foam, but it doesn't matter. And we have a nice aroma. I can smell it. I can smell the beer. Kind of smells malty. Of course, I believe that foam produces more of an aroma. So if you pour a beer and it's foamy, you're going to get more of an aroma out of that than if you do it this way. Now maybe I poured this one too softly. I don't know. But let's get to tasting. Prost. These beers, as I mentioned, are higher in alcohol, 5.8 ABV on the Weihenstephaner, as you can see there on the bottom of the bottle. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm not sure what the Hofbräu is, but I know it's more than 5 and probably less than 6. But it's a good beer. It's got some sweetness to it. It's got the traditional Helles or lager taste to it. And it finishes off with a slight bit of bitterness. It's a very good beer. Like I said, one of my favorites. One of my favorite styles. Okay. Now, let's see how the Weihenstephaner compares. Weihenstephaner is not as sweet, and it's more bitter. The flavor is similar. This one probably would be closer to a Pilsner than a Helles. I'm not sure. I would need to do a side-by-side. And I'm going to get some more Festbiers that are available at the liquor store. I see that Tucher has one. It's a Tucher. It's a brewery in Germany, in Bavaria, as a matter of fact, I believe. Tucher makes several different beers, and I saw at the beer store they have one that's a Festbier, or an Oktoberfestbier. But you got to check, though. If you go and it says Oktoberfest beer on it, you got to make sure that it's a Festbier or a Wiesn beer and not a Märzen. But you might like Märzens. They're not bad. I prefer the Festbier to the Märzen because I'm generally not a fan of the Vienna lagers or the red lagers, but they're malty too. These are probably intentionally brewed with more malts in order to be closer to the Märzen. I don't know. It's pretty consistent from start to finish. You can taste the bitterness up front. Whereas in the Hofbräu, you taste the sweetness up front. And the bitterness, you can pick it up, but it's not quite as bitter as the Weihenstephaner. I think a word that can be used to describe Märzen might be a bit toasty. And I think that both of these beers might have a hint of toastiness to them. And when I think about it, there's a lingering bitterness in my mouth that is similar to toastiness, similar to eating maybe burnt toast, but not extremely burnt, maybe slightly burnt toast. I would say that the Hofbräu has a bit more hoppiness to it. And, well, not hoppiness, but I would say maltiness, because it's sweeter, and the Weihenstephaner is a bit hoppier. Because as I said, it reminds me of a Pilsner, at least compared to this. The real test would be to get a Pilsner and a Helles and do a side-by-side, which I might do. But anyway, happy Oktoberfest, or in Germany, in Wiesn. And the name Wiesn comes from the grounds where the festival is held. Because from what I understand, they don't call it Oktoberfest in Germany. Or at least the Germans don't. People who have moved to Germany from another country might call it Oktoberfest. And of course they cater to the tourist. So you are going to see Oktoberfest this and Oktoberfest that everywhere if you go there. I've been there twice. And it's interesting. It's basically just a big carnival. If you've been to a carnival in the US where they have the rides and the stands and everything, well, that's what it is there, except on a much larger scale. And the rides are bigger too. They're carnival type rides, but much bigger. They have a helter-skelter there. And that's basically a circular slide where you go up to it and you slide down like this. And of course, that's what the Beatles song is talking about. I go up to the top, and I stop, and I turn, and I go for a ride. However that goes, I'm not sure. But Helter Skelter is a ride that is common in Europe, and you can find one, or at least I found one, at Oktoberfest. Or the Wiesn in Germany, in Munich. And the beer tents are not actually tents. They are removable structures, but they're huge. They can fit 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 in some of the bigger ones. And sometimes you can't even get into them. You go to one of these beer tents, and I think they're called a Festzelt, if I'm not mistaken. And sometimes they won't let you in because it's packed. And some of them you walk in and you're lucky to find a place to sit. I remember going there in the morning one time, and that's the best time to go. Get there in the morning. As soon as they open, you will get inside a tent. You can eat. Well, yeah, these Festzels also serve food. Most of them do. And most of them have a band in it of some type, a traditional oompa band or whatever they call them. And, they do all the traditional German songs. Ein Prosit, ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Sicky-sacky, hoi, hoi, hoi. 1, 2, 3, Sufa. 1, 2, 3, drink. Sufa. So, I'm gonna try one more thing here. Mix these two together. There's some foam. Oktoberfest is cool, but you can't take too much. And the reason is, it's freaking crowded. The streets especially, when people start rolling out of bed in the morning, and then they get ready, and they usually start getting there around noon, and it's just packed. The Festzelt are packed, the streets are packed, everything. So I can only take so much of it. Spending 1 or 2 days visiting the Wiesn is enough. And I spent a week in Munich and did a lot of other things other than going to the Wiesn. Of course, Munich is cool too. You can go to the Hofbräu house. Spaten has a beer garden. I haven't been to it. Löwenbräu. And of course, if you go out of Munich, you can go to Weihenstephaner. And there are other breweries around too that are not part of the big six, which are allowed to sell beer at the Wiesn. Hofbräu is. Hofbräu has one of the bigger tents there. Believe it or not, I've never been in the Hofbräu tent at the Wiesn.